All right, in this third part of this series, we're going to be taking all of our hard-coded content and then actually turning that into actual WordPress CMS content. So we're going to be talking about the WordPress loop, how to pull content from the database and dynamically insert that into our various template files. So let's go ahead and get started. Follow along. All right, so we'll start here with our homepage, just where we left off before. And we need to take all of this hard-coded content that we added into our front page and put that inside of WordPress. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into WordPress here. So I'm going to log into the back end of WordPress, go to my pages section and say add new. And I'm just going to call this page my home sweet home. And I'll just type in something for now. So eventually I'll fix this up. But I'm just going to go ahead and publish that. So it is now published. Now I can come into my settings and reading, and I want my home page to display a static page, and that page is my home sweet home. So we need to first create the page, and then we can tell WordPress to use that page as my website's home page or front page. And then we're going to hit Save Changes. Okay, so now we can come over here and we can go ahead and refresh this page inside of our blog, and you'll see that, right, nothing's changing at this point. We still have all of the hard-coded content. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to delete all of this hard-coded content. So I'm going to delete everything. Let's see, everything in this container. I'm just going to remove. So that container goes down to right there. And so now we just have the article, and then we have our footer and our header. So that's looking pretty good. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is for each specific page, I just want to have basically this article tag. So I'm actually going to take this content right here and cut that out and put that in my header.php file. So that's going to go right below here. And then I will take, let's go back here to the front page. I'll take all this footer stuff down to that closing div tag, save, and I'm going to put that in my footer.php file right down there. Actually, I'm going to have this go right above the WP footer command right there. Okay, perfect. So now inside of my template file, essentially my header has everything except the article, the main content, which is the way I want it. So let's just type something here and hit save, and you can see sure enough that appears. But I want the content that I saved in that page to appear here. And this is where we're going to finally talk about what's known as the WordPress loop. So WordPress, a loop is basically an iterator, right? Which iterates over several things. So when we save a page or a post or really anything inside of WordPress, when we save something inside of our posts or pages, that gets saved as a row in our MySQL database in my case. So what WordPress does is it dynamically queries the database, finds which row corresponds to the page you're on, pulls that information, and displays it in that section. And that's known as the loop. So when I come over here, we need to create the loop code. So this is a little bit weird the way they do this, but WordPress uses a while loop. So what you can say is, if we have posts, okay, so if posts exist, basically, then we're going to execute this code in here. So the next section is going to be while, and then we're going to say have posts. While we have posts, we come down here and we say the post. Okay, so let's save that just far. So if we have posts, and then this is the iterator, this is the for loop or the while loop in this case, while there's posts, whoops, this needs to be a function. While we have posts, so this, in other words, the post is going to execute every single time as long as there's posts. So we can save that, and it looks like, oh yeah, so that hadn't updated yet. So let's refresh that over here. It looks like my web server actually may have crashed. You can see it's trying to reload this page, but I think it crashed. So I may need to restart my web server. I'm going to pause really quick and restart the server. Okay, so I've restarted my web server and we're back live here. So what we can do is we can call the post, and that essentially makes WordPress query the database and fetch out a single post. Once we've called the post, we can then call a bunch of other WordPress functions. So I'm just going to show you one here called the content. And this is one that actually grabs the content and inserts it. So you can see as soon as I save that, sure enough, my page now says something. So this content, of course, is coming from my page here. Let me go down to my pages. It's coming from this page right here, right? Where it says something. So instead of saying something, I want this to actually show, right, well, I guess whatever is on my home page. It really doesn't matter at this point. But I'm just going to call this homepage content. And we'll go ahead and say update. Come back here and refresh. And you can see, sure enough, that's coming in. Now I want this heading here to show me the title of the current page. Now, because that is back here in my header .php file, there's a command in here that's called, actually I have to look this one up really quick. It's called, I think, get the title. Okay, so the command is just called the title. So I'm going to come in here to this heading and I'll just replace this and say the title, like so, and then close off the PHP and save. And now you can see it shows the current page title or post title, whatever it would be, up there in that section right there. And then my content is right down there. So that's looking great. So that's really all we need right now for our front page to be mostly complete. So we have this little loop. We're pulling out the post and the content. And there's several other things you can pull out. You can pull out the author, the date, the time, the tags, the post excerpt, the post thumbnail, post images, right? All those things are available inside of WordPress commands, and that's going to really depend on how your theme's set up, where you want to display certain things. But we'll get a little bit more into that as we do these other template files for our page and post sections. So we're going to save that, and now let's move on to another page. So one of the problems that we have is our menu items right here inside of our sidebar are also hard-coded. So, right, this is not going anywhere. So I need to make this section dynamic. And in order to do that, I have to add another thing to my functions.php file, which enables menus, WordPress menus. So let's go ahead and do that next. So we'll come in here to our functions. Let me pull this down, and we will add our menu options. Inside of our functions.php file, we're going to create a new function here, and this is just going to be called the follow Andrew, and we're just going to call it the menus. Okay, now there is in order to set up your menus in WordPress, you can set up as what are known as menu locations. So for example, in my website, I've got a menu location over here on the left. Perhaps I want another one on the footer. Maybe I want a different menu location for the mobile. Right, so you can set up different menu locations, but for us, we're just going to set up 2 to show you how this works. So let's come over here, and I'll pull this over again. So we're going to create an array. So I'm just going to call this one the locations, and I'll set that equal to an empty array for now. And then inside of this array, it's basically key values. So the key is the menu location name, and the value is like the title and a few things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just call this one my primary menu. And the primary menu is going to be, we can just call this the desktop primary left sidebar, right? It's just kind of a description of your menu, really whatever you want to call that. And then I'll add one more, and I'll call this one my footer menu. And then I'll just say the footer menu items, however you want to call that. Okay. So once you have your option declared, your function, we of course need to add in another hook. So we're going to say add, actually, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's one other command we need to do inside of here, and that's called register nav menus. And we need to pass in this variable. So this is an array of all of our nav menu names and descriptions. Okay, so all that code is inside of our function. Then we need to add in to the action. So we're going to add action. This one's going to be inside of the init hook. So we'll copy and paste in our function name like we've done several times before. So this function is going to hook into the initialize function, which happens fairly early on in the hook process. And we'll go ahead and save. Okay, now that we have those active, if I come back and log into WordPress here, and now go into my appearance, And notice that before I didn't have an offshoot for menus. Menus actually was not even in this menu. But now, because I've added that in my theme, I can click on the menus and I now have menus available to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our first menu. So I'm just going to call this menu name the main menu, and we'll say create. And now notice right here, I have these two locations. I have my desktop primary and my footer. So now I can select where I want this menu to appear inside of my theme. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to add a couple of options here. So for right now, I'm just going to create a few new pages. So I'll come into my pages and hit add new. I'll call this one my about page. And the only reason I'm doing this is just so I have something in my menu in order to show right now. So we'll publish this. Let's add, maybe we'll add one more and we'll call it contact us. And we'll say contact, and we'll publish that page as well. Okay, so now when I come back in here to my appearance menus, I have a few things over here I can add. So I'm going to add all of these three, the default sample, and then those two, and I'm going to say add to menu. And you can see that they get added right here to my main menu. In WordPress, you can drag these as submenus and they'll appear as drop-down menus if your theme supports that, or just as main items like this. And now I want to say, I want this menu to appear in my desktop primary left sidebar. So I'll go ahead and click on my save menu. Okay, so now this menu is created in WordPress. It's set to be displayed where that menu location is, but I, of course, haven't actually added the code for that menu to appear. So that's where we'll jump back into our code editor, and we're now going to go set up what's known as the primary menu. So that is done. If we recall back in our theme, we come into our header. Our header has that entire menu. It's a little bit tricky here. I'm going to line wrap this. But this is all of the code for that menu that's hard-coded. So essentially, I want to remove all that hard-coded menu and replace it with a WordPress function that's going to automatically dynamically display the menu. So let's do that next. Now you can see here from my code, my menu is inside of this unordered list. So I have a div called navigation, and this is these classes, collapse, navbar collapse, flex column. These are WordPress, or sorry, not WordPress. These are Bootstrap classes that automatically enables the mobile menu and automatically does a few things like that. But the actual menu itself is all inside of the unordered list. Each menu item, right, in my list here is a simple unordered list with a list item with a whole bunch of classes and things that kind of make it styled correctly. So essentially what I want to do is I'm going to add some of my own code right inside of this section. Now, eventually I'll delete all of this hard-coded stuff, but I'm going to leave it right now because I'm going to need to reference it as I build this menu via WordPress. So the command you need is called wp nav menu. And with this function, it takes several parameters. So I'm going to open up the function here. I'm going to do these parameters on one line. So it takes an array, and I'm going to put each of these parameters in the array like this. Okay, so this function takes an array, and the array is a set of all the different parameters. So the first one we're going to do is just called menu, and this is the name of the menu you're trying to output. In my case, the primary menu. Remember how we registered primary and footer? So I'm going to output the primary one right here. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is just, I'm going to say container, and I'm going to leave this as empty for now. I'm just listing it here so you can see a few of the options. And then I'm going to say theme location is primary as well. Okay, so this means, right, when the user selected that theme location, I'm saying this is the primary location right here. And the name, that should be fine right there. Okay, so now you can see if I open this back up, I'm getting two menus, right? So now I'm getting my contact, my about, and my sample page. So let's go ahead and inspect these in our code over here. And you can see that it's a little bit messy here. I'll try to pull this out. But WordPress is injecting all sorts of classes into this menu. So you can see that WordPress added an unordered list. It gave that guy an ID. It gave it a class of menu. Each of the menu items has a class of menu item, then the post type, and then the object page, item 14, item 15, item 16. So there's all sorts of stuff that WordPress injects into the menu. And you can customize all this as needed. But it gets a little bit tricky if you want to do advanced customization, because you have to include what's known as a walker class to be able to iterate over the menu to customize everything. So we're not going to get that advanced, but we will learn a few of the tools to where we can customize some of these classes. So the next item we're going to be adding here is one that's called items wrap. And this declares it's sort of the template that is for the unordered list. This is what the items wrap means. So what you have to do here is this is a little bit goofy because you have to say UL. So I'm just going to open the UL and close the UL. So in other words, I'm going to wrap this with an unordered list. And then I have to put parameters inside of here where WordPress will individually add my classes. So one thing is going to be ID. The other thing is going to be a class. And then inside of the unordered list, I have to put the ampersand $3 $S. And then when I save and refresh here, whoops, looks like I missed a semicolon or something. Oh, well, yeah, I wasn't supposed to add a semicolon right there. Let's go ahead and save that. So now if I pull this menu back, I'm going to go down one more time here. I'm trying to get this mobile menu, whoops, to disappear. There we go. Let's get that text back up here and we'll inspect the element again. And you can see here that now my unordered list has an empty ID and an empty class, whereas before it had all that WordPress injected stuff. So now I can specify whatever ID and whatever class I want. So my unordered list in my menu doesn't have an ID, but I do have all these classes. So I'll just copy those and paste that right into there and save. And then let's go ahead and see what that looks like now. Perfect. So you can see now it's got the class and it has all those different classes in there. So that takes care of the items wrapper, the unordered list. But as I mentioned, there's not an option in here to also affect the classes on the list item with this WP nav menu. In order to do that, we have to create this big long custom walker, and it's quite complex. So what we have to do in order to get our classes on our list items is we actually have to do that back inside of WordPress admin. So let's come back in here, and you can see that if I open up one of these options here for all of these different items. So here I have my contact us. There's a few options in here that I can toggle. So what we need to do is we need to turn on an option here, screen options, I believe. There we go. So here it says show advanced menu properties. We need to turn on the CSS classes. Okay. And the link target, well, actually we don't need that one. That should be fine. Okay. Now you can see that I can provide a CSS class for this specific option. So again, the class name I need for me is the nav item right there. So I'm going to copy nav item and we'll come over here and we'll click paste. And now let's go ahead and save that. So we're just going to do this on one for now, but you can see that my contact has the nav item on it. So let's go back here and refresh and see if we can now see that appear here. So that is the first one right here. And sure enough, you can see that it still has all the WordPress classes over here, but it does have now the class of nav item, which is the one I was after. Okay, so that's looking good for now. And we can go ahead and add that to the rest of these. So we'll go ahead and add that to this one, and we'll add it to this one, and go ahead and save. So now all of those have that. And refresh. Okay, so that's looking better. Now you can also see that in our menu, our anchor tags themselves have the class of nav link. And there's no way for me to customize the anchor tag with CSS classes. So even if I come in here to WordPress and I, toggle these guys, this class is applied to the unordered list, not the actual anchor tag. and I'm unaware of a way where you can do that. So you actually have to use a custom walker to make that happen. We're not going to get that far in this tutorial, but just be aware there's several other tutorials out there on doing some advanced things with walkers. But we'll just leave this with our nav item. Now notice we also have a inside of our anchor tag, we have this icon. So I'm going to copy the icon here, and I'll just copy this, and let's actually do this one for we'll do the blog post one just to show you. I'm not going to do this to them all, but I'll copy this icon. This is coming over from Font Awesome. So what I could do if I wanted the icon, let's say on this, I don't know, we'll just pick the about page here. I could paste that directly, that HTML directly into the navigation label and save. And now when I come over here and refresh, you can see that, let me zoom in here. I've got my icon, right? So there's the little icon appearing. So that's how you would have to do your Bootstrap icons. Again, it's a little bit clunky doing it this way, and that's because we have a really specific markup that's required because of Bootstrap. A much easier way would be to change your own CSS and match WordPress's outputted CSS classes that they give you. But of course, if you can't do that, then really you have to jump to that advanced method with the custom walkers inside of WordPress. Perhaps I'll do a video on that in the future, but for right now, we'll just leave it alone like this. Okay, so we've got these little items. Just so you can see, the only thing really this nav link is doing for us, if I inspect the element here and I just manually add one, so I'll come in here to this code and we'll give it a class equals nav-link, just so you can see. All it's doing is just changing the size and the color of that. So perhaps what I can do to get that to work is, instead of calling these things nav-link, remember WordPress gives these guys what does WordPress do? I actually don't know. Looks like they're actually not giving the anchor tags any markup at all. So I'd have to go into my own CSS and edit that class and maybe perhaps move it up to the nav item. So I could do something like, let's come over to my CSS. So we'll search for the nav-item, and you can see that the nav item has a little rule here that's for the nav link. So instead of calling this nav link, I'm just going to call it anchor, because that's really what it is. It's an anchor tag. And then I'll call this one here anchor and save. And now they're basically, having that same thing happening to them. Oh, here's another one over here. Guess I should just replace all these nav links. Let's do a quick search here. Looks like I have 5 of them. So this one will be anchor. This one will be anchor. There's another one we're going to have as anchor. Oh, they're all over the place on all these. So I'll replace that one with anchor, this one with anchor. Oops, that's navlink pre. That's a different one. Oh, that's a different one too. So that'll be anchor. Now let's see if that's working. So that's a little bit better, right? So now we're getting close there to our previous menu down here. It looks like we have some issue with the spacing, which I'm not sure where is coming from. Looks like we have one more nav link. Nope, that's the previous. So I don't know, there's a margin somewhere in here I missed, but we'll just kind of ignore that. But you can see how that's going to work. So now that I've got those in there and hard-coded, I can come into my header and I can finally then take this old menu and delete it out, because now that's being replaced by this menu. So that was perhaps the most complex thing we've done thus far, and that's the way the menus typically tends to be, because there's just lots of nesting and classes all over to kind of build those menus. So now we have our menu working. There's our 3 little pages we have inside of there, and they're showing up just fine on both the desktop and the mobile view, as they should. Okay, so that's how you build menus. Now the next thing we need to do, now that we have our menu out of the way, is create, or our menu is at least dynamic, is create the rest of our template pages. So we can leave all these hard-coded. All the social links would just be hard-coded likely anyway. And that's looking fine now for our header. The one thing I'm noticing right here, we might as well fix while we're here, is that you can see my shortcut icon has the incorrect path. So I want to just update this. So I'm just going to hard code this one. WP content / themes / follow Andrew / assets images logo.png. I think that's where that is. So if we come into our images, that's where it will be. So I'll come in here and drop it in. So I'm going to come over here to my template. Can't really see where I'm looking at here. Oh, there it is. Blog site template images. There's my logo PNG. I'll drop that into my images folder. That's the little logo that's also going to appear right up there, right? Okay, so that would be like the favicon is basically what this guy is, the shortcut icon. Okay, so that's looking fine there. And now let's go ahead and move along. So we need to now finish our removing all the stuff that's hard-coded. So for example, we have our site name, that's hard-coded right here into our site name. We have our logo. That logo is hard-coded in here as well. So we need to start to remove all that stuff. So we're going to start here with our site name and logo. So we're going to show you how you can add a custom logo, meaning the user can go into the WordPress admin, upload a logo, and it'll automatically then appear in your theme. So let's go ahead and do that. So in my navigation area is where I have that logo stored. So the first thing we need to do is come to our functions, and just like we've done many times before, we need to add the theme support for this function. So remember, we have this function up here where we're going to be adding all of our theme support. So we're going to say add theme support, and this one is going to just be called custom-logo. Okay, so we do that. Now what that allows, if we jump over here now to our backend and we come over here to our themes and we choose the customize action on the installed theme. So you can see I can come in here to the site identity and there's a new option in here called logo. So I can click on select logo and you can just come in here and browse to the logo. I'll just select this logo that I've got and say open. And this, of course, uploads it. You can give an alt text. I'll just call this my logo and say select. Of course, you can come in here and do some cropping options. I'm just going to say skip cropping. And there is the logo. So now that I have a logo, I'm going to go ahead and click the publish here and come back. And now that the logo is in place, I can actually output it. So let's come back here and I'm going to come back to the code here. I'm going to jump back over here to my header.php file, come down to where I have this logo hard coded, and then I can actually output it right here. So the code you need to output the logo is, I forget it. I've got to look up my note. It is, we can do this one in an if function. So we can say if function exists. So this is just checking to make sure that the custom logo, function exists, because if we're on an older version of WordPress or something, this may not work. So if that function exists, then we say the custom logo, and we just output it like so. So now let's go ahead and refresh this. Whoops, I wrote all that and I forgot to do my PHP tags. Make sure you actually write that inside of PHP tags and save. And now you can see, sure enough, there is my logo and it's automatically output. Now you can see that the issue here is that the logo gets output, but WordPress is adding, again, all of these extra classes and all these things, and they don't follow with what I need, which if we come back here to our header file is, scroll down here, whoops, where did we? There we go. So I need these classes, right? Because those are the classes that I'm using on my logo. So what I need to do, instead of saying the custom logo, I need to output a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, instead, we're going to say custom logo ID, and this code I'm getting is just from the codex. So I'm going to say get theme modification custom logo. Okay, so I'm getting this variable. And then I'm going to say the logo is equal to, and then we say WP underscore get attachment image. This is a little bit weird here. Source. And then we pass in this custom logo ID right here. So whoops, we need to make that a variable. So we pass in that variable and that should do it. Whoops. I think I forgot a semicolon. Yes, I did. So semicolon. Okay, so now you can see that, oh, I still have an error in there somewhere. Call to undefined function WP get attachment source. So I must have spelled this wrong. WP get attachment image source. Yep, I forgot an E. There we go. Whoops. Let's see, attachment. There we go. Okay, that's correct now. Okay, so now if we just, now this logo basically has all the information about the image source. So now what I can do is I can just manually output my image. So where it says source, I'll just delete that and I'll replace that with the source, which comes from our variable right here. So I copy that, replace that inside of there, and save and refresh. And that still didn't output. I think I have short tags on, but I'll just do this the old way. PHP echo. And I'm still not seeing the logo. So let's just really quick do a quick print R on this to see what's inside of this variable and make sure it has the information I'm looking for. So you can see it does have it. So there is the actual image source. Oh, it's the first, it is a multi-dimensional array, and there's the width and the height. So what we need to do is we need to get the first parameter. So we can say logo sub-0. There we go. And there my logo now shows up. Okay, so let's close that down and save. So that was kind of a little bit of a work, but now you can see I can output the custom logo there and including my custom classes. So there's kind of two ways you can do that, right? If you want to do it the easy way, you just output that simple function right there, the custom logo. If you need to have it customized and just need the path, you can grab the path using this code right there and then add that path directly into your image tag as needed. Okay, so that is now, I think, mostly done. So let's close this down and just double check. So everything now should be dynamic. So we have to do that one last thing. So our logo's dynamic, our menu's dynamic, the page content is dynamic, the page heading here is dynamic, our page title is dynamic. So everything is now being pulled from WordPress with the exception of a couple of things, and that's our site name. Of course, we have this hard-coded. We're going to end up doing that in widgets in the future tutorial, so you can add widgets in our footer to be able to customize those text boxes. But let's go ahead and grab the site name and add that to that area right here. So to do that, we'll just delete this right here, and we'll replace that with a PHP call, and it's going to be called get blog info. And then this is going to be the name, whatever the name attribute is of the blog. We'll output that for the site title. So that should be it. And we need to echo that. There we go. And now it says blog site, right? So that's basically whatever is the name of the site. So that's customizable as well back in here, right? This right here. So I can call it Andrew's site, or we'll call it follow Andrew. Follow Andrew. If I can type that correctly, and just go ahead and save and publish that. And now if we jump back here and refresh, right now that's dynamic as well. So we have our site name being pulled. We have our logo being pulled dynamically with custom logo uploadability. All of our menu is dynamic. And that is now pretty much there. So the last, that's as far as we're going to get in this video tutorial. So in the next video tutorial, we will take what we have here. So we have our basic template set up with our header and our footer, and then we're going to customize each of our individual pages. So we're going to work on the page template and the archive template and the comments and the front page and archives and search forms. So we're going to individually comment all those and start looking at what's known as custom template parts. So that's coming up next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the content so others can find this and hopefully find it valuable and useful. And we will see you in the next one.